All right. Well, we read another interesting technological, kind of technology-facing article this week. It was titled, "New Research May Improve Communications During Natural Disasters." And it ran, you can see it right there, it ran in Monday's issue of the Quality Digest newsletter. The piece was authored by Ben Snedeker. I hope I'm pronouncing Ben's name. Snedeker, probably. Hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, Ben. He works for the Communications Office of the College of Computing at the Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech, which really one of the great research institutes of the United States, Georgia Tech. Always a lot of interesting information comes out of their shop. And as we all know, of course, there's been an unusual number of natural disasters here in North America over the past couple of months. I mean, from flooding and high winds due to Hurricane Harvey and Irma and Maria in Texas, Florida, and Puerto Rico, respectively, to earthquake. Earthquake caused devastation in Mexico City. Many of us have received, and fires here in California. It's happening right now. I mean, we've received a not so gentle reminder that, Mother Nature is sometimes very, very cruel. Yep. You have to live in that world and deal with it when these things happen. And these events, they remind us really something else, I think, as well. That, our modern, our high-tech society that we all live in is really kind of fragile, and it's really reliant almost completely on electrical power, right? I mean, the grid. And when natural disasters knock out that grid, that doesn't just mean no air conditioning, no refrigeration, no lights, no TV. I mean, all those things are inconvenient and dangerous and a problem, but it also means no internet either. Without access to the internet, of course, it's much harder for emergency workers and first responders to share and act on information that's gathered from those affected by hurricanes or earthquakes or tornadoes, floods, fires, or any other devastating acts of God. However, according to Snedeker's article, the use of edge computing, which he refers to here as fog computing, it's not, fog computing, wasn't how I had heard of it, but edge computing, fog computing, so there's some different names for it, can really change the equation and assist emergency personnel in communicating with each other and with those in need. And we'll explain a little bit how this works. And Dirk, maybe you can help me with this. It's a little technical.
We'll see.
But we'll see if we can walk through it together. Now, the practicality of edge computing, I've done a little research on this, has been recognized for at least the last several years, maybe the last decade, within the last decade. And in the most basic of terms, this method optimizes data processing at the edge of networks, right? It means that sensing devices like surveillance cameras or consumer devices like tablets or cell phones can be networked, right, to communicate with one another, even if internet connectivity is constrained. So basically, you can, you can like build a network of these devices if you need to, without having to rely on the cloud or anything else. I think that's how I understand it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure either. I mean, I'm only vaguely familiar with edge computing, but I think that's the gist.
That's the gist of it, right? So in other words, you can use these devices, cell phones, devices, sensing devices like the cameras and things to kind of network together.
And network together. They don't necessarily have to go out over the broader network available from all over.
They build a network within itself to gather information and communicate. Now, of course, that has big implications for first responders. I mean, think about it, during emergencies, because if power's down, typically communications are really severely compromised. So how do you get in touch with people who need help? How do you talk within yourself if you're on a team that's trying to help people? I mean, it's really a problem. And responding to those that need help is again, it's problematic, but it's much more reliable, or can be much more reliable, with the help of an edge computer network. Now, according to Georgia Tech computer science professor Kishore Ramachandran, I think that's how you pronounce that. I've got a couple of names here on this man. Kishore Ramachandran, he says, quote, this capability will provide first responders and others with the level of situational awareness they need to make effective decisions in emergency situations. It's really interesting because you have to make decisions really fast. I mean, you have to know how high the waters are going, where people are, where your team is,
where the fires are at.
The fire is at, whatever it may be. You know, there's a lot that goes on in real time, and you can't just go out with a plan, because the plan changes in real time as the disaster is raging around you. It's a major problem. So it's important to note that there's other applications for edge computing other than just this one that Snedeker talks about in his piece. You know, remote communities and other places with limited internet access can take advantage of sensing devices to share information, for instance. In a large-scale manufacturing environment is another example. Typically that contains dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands, of sensing devices. The sheer amount of data means that it can be processed closer to the sensors themselves, and latency thereby can be reduced. And this really is a major leap forward in efficiency, which is exactly the kind of thing that manufacturers need. If they're going to be
Right.
good manufacturers, they want to be great manufacturers, you need that kind of efficiency. And, you know, it's interesting. The reason I know a little bit about this is that Ula Rolien talked about it at Hexagon Live in June.
President
He's
CEO
president of Hexagon, Big Hexagon, not just
Big
Hexagon
Hexagon, right,
Manufacturing,
right.
but Hexagon as a parent company. He talked about edge computing, how they're experimenting with edge computing and Hexagon systems being able to use all that data to reduce latency and take advantage of these networked systems that you can have, which is much faster, I guess, much less latency, much less waste. Again, you would know better than I think in terms of how these systems work.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, from just catching from the gist of this, and I'll just kind of brainstorm and riff here, but it sounds like what they're saying, and kind of my limited understanding, is that very often when you go out over the internet, you're jumping all over the place to get to a server that may be in Texas, and we're here in California.
And when we say latency, I mean we're talking about very small amount of time.
Sometimes, I mean, small amounts, but I think more critical is if that trunk gets cut off, if the main pipe, let's say, to a server in Texas gets cut off, then you're losing that data. And so edge computing has basically computers, you know, processors, databases, and so forth, spread all over the place, and you connect to the one that's closest to you or that's available to you. So even if you lose connection to something somewhere else, like they said, you may have a connectivity locally, and if you have an edge computing center locally, then even if you're cut off from the rest of the world, so to speak, you're still somewhere in the ballpark.